backwards. We'll try it forward.
We've got call you in. Can I give you notice of recording? Can I advise you that members of the press or public may record and take photographs this evening? And I'll just let you know, in case you haven't got your agenda with you, the plan is to do councillors' updates, then a tours/lift update, which shouldn't take long. Then we're going to do the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee celebrations, and then we'll go through our community and voluntary groups, and then we'll see if residents have got any other matters that they, residents and resident groups, and then any other business. So that's the plan. I'll try and keep us to timing. We will definitely be finished by 9 o'clock. So I think probably the best if I start with Councillor Dominic, who's going to give us his update. Thank you very much.
If I can work out the microphone. Is that live? Very good. Very fancy stuff in this church. So a few kind of quick updates from me and kind of local ward affairs. So the, I guess, big news of the week is that we have now had confirmation from the police inspector for the constituency that there are some changes afoot with our local policing. So the first part of that is that Sergeant Short, who's been our sergeant here for a number of years and has been managing both Quinton ward and Bartley Green ward, is now going to be looking exclusively after Bartley Green, which means that Sergeant Bushra Zarif from Harborne is coming over to look after Quinton and only Quinton. And we're having a new inspector for the entire constituency, who I believe was a former sergeant in Quinton before my time, when we had an inspector in Quinton. So that is positive news. I know that myself and other councillors and MPs, etc., over the years have pushed for that. So it's good that that's kind of finally come through after, I think, a few years of campaigning. Linked to that, we conducted a survey of residents in the last few months. So it's gone through every door in the ward, which is focused on crime and policing. It's primarily focused around the Quinton police station, which, as everyone will know, has been an ongoing campaign for, again, a number of years from lots of different stakeholders to try and get that the police station building to save it from sale and ideally turn it into a multi-use community hub. So that would involve having different agencies, stakeholders, etc., in the building on Quinton Road West. So that survey has been very well responded to, and we're just kind of compiling the results at the moment. It won't surprise you to hear that there's widespread support for the proposal to turn it into a multi-agency hub. And equally, it's been a useful survey, as quite a lot of residents have come forward and expressed interest in getting more involved in some of the community kind of activism that we can do around crimes. That's things like the speed watch, street watch, neighbourhood watches and whatnot. So hopefully we can tap up those people over the next few weeks and get them more involved in the initiatives that we already have. I don't know if I am taking questions, but I will.
Does that mean the police station, there have always been rules that say they're being sold? Definitely not sold.
At this stage, not sold, to my understanding. The most recent plan I've seen was the police report, which was pre-Christmas, which proposed the sale of the building by spring of this year, which is obviously now-ish. But from what I understand, and Kate might be able to update more, there's been obviously significant pressure to the PCC's office from lots of different areas and different avenues to prevent that from happening. Yes, Jim, and then Mel.
I was going to say, I don't know whether it's actually been removed from sale, but as far as I'm aware, there's nothing proceeding at the moment. Whether that means we've saved it or not is a different matter.
The inspector for the trust online as well.
I think I could.
It's my glamorous assistant handing the microphone around.
Excuse me, while they're sorting the mic out, can you hear us if we're online?
Yesterday, there was a police event. Inspector Waters was an inspector here when we had an inspector in Quinton and 17 police officers. He then moved to traffic. He's now come back into the constituency. I have previous experience of the new police sergeant who was in the Harborne team. Inspector Waters is very keen to get more officers for Quinton, not for the constituency, but for Quinton. So fingers crossed that will happen. Yep, thanks.
I don't need that. It was a quick question. You said multi-agency. What does multi-agency look like?
So multi-agency would really be up for various different stakeholders to come forward and propose to be part of it. So our initial thoughts would be that would involve Birmingham City Council services, whether that's their youth service, family support services and so on, to bring in the police again and then have a community area within it, which could be used for various different community groups, for community meetings, street watch, and also have the police as doing a regular drop-in service essentially.
So does that mean it'll have extended hours, or will it be a 9 to 5?
I don't think we're at that stage yet. At this point, we're probably just trying to stop them from selling the station, whilst we then develop further plans.
We've also got some community interest groups that are interested. For example, the Quinton Pantry, which actually operates out of Welsh House Farm at the moment, are very much looking for a location in Quinton Ward. They call themselves a Quinton Pantry. They feel very Quinton because, of course, Welsh House Farm used to be Quinton. So lots of groups like that who are interested.
Does that include groups that might look after the 13-14 plus, so there's somewhere for them after school?
I think there's something that we've got started in the Quinton
big
Community
building.
Centre, the Quinn
Yeah,
Board.
so one of the things which we were surveying was what people would like to see in that kind of a community hub or multi-agency hub. So there's a list of different services that we've kind of put forward, which people have then kind of confirmed which they like the idea of. So once we've compiled all of the data, we'll have an idea of what people think as a bit of a guide, if that makes sense.
When you say it's going to be a hub, right, is it going to be like a neighbourhood office for people? Because a lot of people ain't getting no services as regards as help with council tax and rent and so forth, etc. So will it be that type of thing as well?
Yes, I think certainly we would envisage it to be open for BCC services, so that whether that would be, I don't suspect we'd be able to get a permanent front desk for the council, but I think certainly having different agencies, different departments from the council organising regular drop-in sessions is definitely something that the hub would look at.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely we'd get a permanent presence from the council there or have it permanently staffed. But if people are concerned about if they need support with any forms, they can always go to Quinton Library, and they have a support officer working in Quinton Library, and people can book in to get help filling in forms and completing things and putting in complaints. And obviously I do my surgeries first and third Wednesday of the month. I'm not sure when yours are, but there are always people around. And generally, if people come to the food bank, the first and third Wednesdays of the month, I'm there. The second Wednesday of the month, we have a debt team supporting people and giving them advice about coming out of debt. And on the fourth Wednesday, we have Gateway Family Services who also offer that support. So that's always there. That's between 11 and 1 at the food bank at St Boniface Church on Quinton Road West.
Yeah. The final thing to say on that is that the chief executive of the new chief executive of the council, Deborah Cadman, in a meeting pre-Christmas with myself and colleagues from the council, very much indicated that over her tenure, she wants to put council services back into the hearts of the communities and have better access on the ground within suburbs like Quinton. So hopefully, obviously, she's been getting her feet under the desk for the last kind of 6 months. Is it 6 months so far?
Yeah, I think
maybe a bit less.
That. I think we've got Barry wanting to ask a question as well.
Sure.
Barry, can we hear your question?
Yeah. Sorry, Kate. I couldn't get on to start with, and you'd already started. I just don't know if you're hearing us, me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, that's okay. That's all I wanted to know. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, the first thing I said was if people who are online can keep their microphones off, because we could hear you very loud and clear. It's not necessarily you, Barry, but other people. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Sorry, yeah, Paul?
I think the information about the food bank is generally known, and that we do have lots of support staff there. With the team we have working at the Quinton, at the food bank used to be, I think there were just 2 or 3 of us. I think today we had 7 or 8 people working flat out for 2 hours. We are absolutely overwhelmed with visitors. Yeah, well, I can give you all that information if you want to put it on, but I think it's generally known. I mean, I tweet about my surgeries.
I think it's a very good point. And certainly when we were drafting the ward plan 9 months ago, one of the issues that was raised repeatedly is that we aren't very good at necessarily communicating access information for various different services. And there was a part of the ward plan which refers to making sure we're making better use of the notice boards, making sure that we're increasing things like our mailing list for these kind of meetings and so on. And obviously this evening's kind of testament to that we need to do more of that. So that's probably something which we need to look at anew, and in terms of how we can better market things, whether that's a monthly mailer or something similar, I'm not quite sure, but it's probably a question for after May now, unfortunately. Right, so I'll rattle through the other couple of updates I've got. Oh, sorry, Steve. On Facebook or on the actual physical? So it was put up, but it was only put up yesterday.
And I've tweeted about it as well.
Agreed, and I think
it is done by the council. The council have been tweeting it this week. So if you subscribe to Birmingham City Council, they do a reminder at the start of each week of which groups are meeting that week, which ward forum are meeting that week.
And I think with the ward forum meetings in particular, obviously we've had a fairly sporadic and topsy-turvy year with COVID and cancellations and everything else. So hopefully post-May, the new councillors can focus on making sure these are more consistent and better advertised. Tom? A lot of people in this area ain't got computers, they can't afford them. See, and what everything's done online. You've done the council tax supposed to be done online. If you want to buy it, you're in, it's what you're going to do, they want to do it online. This feeding thing, the government feeding, the cleaning everything, it's all got to be done online. It's ridiculous. I mean, no, I'm 82 years old. I ain't very good at using living my life on. So what they say, how do you pay out the paper if you get done for the time? It's all wrong.
You can do things that way, but you know, my mum's 94, and I always remember about 6 years ago, she said to me, can you teach me how to Zoom? And I said, who do you want to Zoom with? Who are you Zooming to? And she said, your Auntie Alice, your great Auntie Alice. Well, Auntie Alice at that time was 103. So don't let age get in the way. Unfortunately, it is the new way. It's the council will mainly use the internet to get these messages through because they can't ring you. It's very difficult to find someone who's going to walk around all our notice boards and put things up. We do try and do that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't try any harder, but you know, it's a little bit like we used to write letters, then we used to have phone calls, and now we've got Twitter and Facebook and all the rest. I'm just sorry. I'm going to bring Barry in because he's had his hand up for a while.
Yes, sorry, Kate, I don't know how many of us are sat here watching online, but I can't hear a thing. I can hear you and Dom talking, but I can't hear anybody else.
I'm sorry, apologise for that. We did have my glamorous assistant, Dominic, here, who was going amongst the group with the microphone, and we'll take it in turns to do that.
I'm not sure about glamorous assistant. I don't know if I object to glamorous or assistant.
Working. We just had a discussion about how the council gets its messages across, with Tom concerned that it's mainly done through Twitter and Facebook and such like these days, rather than by post or by phone.
Can I just add something to that, please? I keep saying this 8 years now. If you're going to just send out, come and meet the councillors and have a chat, you're not going to get many people there. It's hardly inspiring. The people need to know what's being talked about. We had 24 at the Celebrating Communities Fund last meeting. That's because it went out on the notice boards and on the Quinton page, and people knew it involved money and things coming for Quinton. It wasn't a chat with Celebrating Communities Fund. It wasn't a chat with the councillors. It had a specific target, and it was advertised, and we got 24, which is quite a large number for ward forum meetings.
Yeah, we did advertise to everybody at that meeting that this meeting was taking place. But yes, there were more people, probably more interested parties, and I think the rain tonight hasn't helped. But we have got people online tonight and a reasonable group in the church.
Yeah, getting on from what Tom said, they're one of the stumbling blocks to getting the elderly online and joined up is none, as you found out this morning, Councillor, none of the shelter housing common rooms have internet connection. They have internet connection for Birmingham City Council support officers, but there's no connection where we can get companies in to train them up on their online account and things like that. We fought hard for years to get it, but no avail. And if we had in the sheltered accommodation or independent living, whatever they call it now, we could get people in there, older, not necessarily from that particular scheme, but the older people from around Quinton could come in there and avail themselves of the...
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think the other thing to say is that the two people I was doing some casework for this morning or this afternoon when we were in that coffee morning actually had smartphones that were working on 4G or whatever. So things are changing pretty rapidly. I think Peter behind you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, I mean, Barry makes a good point. Unfortunately, it's really always been the case that when the ward, well, it was committee in the past, the ward committee, I'm sure quite a lot of us here will remember, but there was always funds available, and as a consequence, you had 30, 40 really big attendances but that was only because local people knew that they could, one way or another, they would be able to get funding for whatever the particular cause or organisation required it. So I'm not sure how well we'll be able to change that. I mean, as Barry said, yeah, when it's to do with funding being available for all of us to be able to develop particular activities, particular organisations, then it's fine. You start getting the numbers back, but that's temporary. It's not like it's always going to be there, and you just, okay, you may have to wait your turn, but you get something out of coming to the ward meeting. So,
that's a good point.
Cash incentives for ward forum attendance. I like the idea.
I think Barry, you want to make another point? No, he doesn't. Right, thank you very much. Surely carry on, Dominic.
Yes, I'll rattle through. So I can't remember if this was information from before or after the last ward forum, so apologies if it's not new information, but Quinton Road West resurfacing is now scheduled to start on the 9th of May. In the meantime, I've pushed Stuart from Cllrs to organise temporary patch potholes, or more of them. He did some in January, and I think he's now done some more in February further down. So sorry about the delay. We've all been pushing and pushing and pushing.
It is now still absolutely dreadful. I drove down it this morning. It was horrendous.
And I think that's due to the quality of the temporary repairs. I was coming up this way, the Hollybush roundabout. They put a temporary patch on that square there, and that's lasted less than 3 months. The one around the corner's lasted less than 3 weeks. So we definitely need to be pushing the council, the contractors, to make sure their temporary repairs are actually lasting the 6 to 12 months that they should be lasting. So Quinton Road West, 9th of May. The youth club, which was launched in January, is still going. And I apologise, I was a few minutes late. I was busy making glasses out of bendy straws and playing table tennis. So the youth club is still happening every Wednesday from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock for 11 to 15-year-olds, £1 entry. Everybody is welcome, and we're going to try and advertise a little bit more and encourage more children to come along. We've normally got between 10 to 15, and they are coming back, which is at least positive news. And so, again, once we kind of advertise that session, we'll hopefully be able to use that as a platform to expand and hopefully open more evenings or in different locations and so on. So really positive that we've got that kind of going. On the 2nd of April, Andy Street, the Mayor of the West Midlands, is coming down to Quinton to join in with a community clean-up, which is part of his West Midlands, Great West Midlands Clean, which is partly around the Commonwealth Games, but also partly around making sure our neighbourhoods are clean and tidy. So that's on the 2nd of April, meeting outside the police station on Quinton Road West at 10:30 in the morning. And linked to that, I had confirmation that a full deep clean of Quinton Road West took place in February after lots of residents asked me to organise a Birmingham City Council organised clean-up. So I'm not sure if the residents around that part of ward noticed if that had been done, but I've had confirmation that it was done. The last couple of things, I wanted to say thank you to everybody that donated to our Acorns Children's Hospice Fire and Ice Walk, which myself and Connor McCormack did on Friday of last week. I walked over hot coals and Connor walked over broken glass. And we raised about £400 for Acorns and Love Brum, so that was fantastic. And then finally, a thanks from myself and Bethany, who was the driving force behind our Ukrainian refugee women and girls sanitary product drive, which we did over International Women's Day and one day either side last week or the week before. And we ended up with 11 boxes this side full of sanitary items and toiletries, which have already been shipped out in Arctic trucks over to the Polish border. So thank you very much for the generosity of everybody that came forward and donated. We were overwhelmed, and I know more on that, I think, in Kate's update. And I think that's everything from me.
Okay, so Tom, can we get the microphone to Tom?
Because he's going to need them if he's coming round Quinton.
He'll be bringing very large bags.
Because he's going to need them.
Yeah, so I'll run through a little bit on that one. So if I can just follow up with what Dominic's been saying, so it's a splendid collection with sanitary products for women and girls that they've been making. And I'd also like to thank Sam and Lauren and it is the Labour group who've been doing the collection for Ukraine. We moved it on Saturday. We moved, I think we had a van and 5 cars and it wasn't enough.
300 bags of clothes, 200 bags of bedding, 100 bags of foil blanket, and other assorted stuff as well. It was phenomenal.
I had a car full of medical supplies that I took over to the jewellery quarter.
We had pet food. We were absolutely overwhelmed with people's generosity at the Quinton.
Yeah, so absolutely enormous thank you to Quinton for that. I think what they're now saying is really what they need is cash.
Cash now.
So I think you know, we were struggling by the end to place the stuff that we got because I think now they just say they can get most of the things they need, for example, in Poland, and it's just they just want the cash so they can buy it on the spot.
I was just going to raise with regards to when you mentioned about Quinton Road West, bear in mind that what Cllrs did was they patched from Co-op up to 4 dwellings. They didn't do anything south of Co-op down towards down to West Boulevard. So all of those potholes that were still there still exist there and still will be there until May. So
and they're
obviously,
actually getting worse. I mean,
yeah,
they're right
So,
down at the
well,
moment.
one of them, if you look at the moment, it's halfway up, and that's approximately 3 meters long by about 1.5 meters wide. So you can't avoid it. It's about 7 centimeters deep. So, I've gone louder. So at that point, it is going to cause severe damage to vehicles if it continues that way. So it just needs refilling or doing something with it until May actually happens. So I know Stuart said last time after the ward meeting, he messaged us saying he was going to send someone to have a look at it. But it hasn't been
well,
done.
I'm sure Dominic will as well. We'll have a word with Stuart Cross, and we'll tell him that we need some more patching. Now we've got to wait till May. And just to explain, the reason we've got to wait till May, because the work was planned before that, is because Cadent, is it, gas, have got some gas works. And what they didn't want to do is resurface the whole of Quinton Road West, then have Cadent come and dig all the things up for the gas and then have to patch it. So they've decided very, very sensibly that it's better to get the gas works out of the way and then go for the complete refurb of the whole road. So that's just to kind of explain that. I have got Barry with his hand up, so I'm going to bring Barry in.
Sorry, I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. Quinton Road West, come on, we're going to resurface it. We've got speed bumps up there that don't do the job. I've stood and watched. I've been several times up there watching the bikes and the cars zoom right over them because you can. So we're going to recycle it. Probably best to leave the potholes there. They do a better job than the speed bumps. Good
point. The reason that the bumps are not as high as some people would like, and it's the same with the Bally roads, with Martley Croft, Simmons and Highfield, is that we've got buses going along those routes, and consequently we've got the speed bumps as high as we're allowed to have them on those roads. So I'm sorry they're not as high as the residents would like, but they are high as we're allowed.
Then don't put them in because they don't work. So I'm just saying, before you do Quinton Road West, don't put them in.
Had a number of residents who have been unhappy about it because they have to slow right down. So maybe it's just, you know, if you've got a Porsche or a Maserati, you're a bit more careful on them, I'm not sure. But we've done the best we can.
I've taken a great deal of personal satisfaction when I've been walking down Highfield Lane and seeing people, generally younger people, in very souped up cars with with dropped sides or whatever, lowered suspension, going very, very slowly over them. So if it's just my own satisfaction, they do work.
Yeah. Councillor Booth, would you like to give an update on, some people don't know it, No Name Lane that's taken 12 years
yeah,
to?
No, I haven't even got going on my list yet, Jim, so I'll go through. So if I just carry on. So I'm sure you'll all have noticed if you drove through Quinton, we've got footway resurfacing going on along Ridgeacre Road, and then we've got carriageway resurfacing also that's going to be happening on Ridgeacre. So that's all good news. So No Name Lane. So No Name Lane, for those that you don't know, leads from Simmons Road shops at the short numbers of Simmons Road, where it abuts Quinton Road West, and runs down to Highfield Lane. It's a little path. It's been a bête noire of mine for 6 years, I have to say. It has got deep and entrenched. It's got, well, I've been a representative here in Quinton for 6 years. So I eventually managed to get Stuart Cross from Highways and Gary Chalk from Housing, with my head carrying education, and we walked, the three of us, with Jim from the Housing Liaison Board, down No Name Lane. We identified ancient fly tipping, new fly tipping, litter, overgrown hedges, lamp posts where the lamps weren't working, access issues, problems where we need to limit access, uneven flagstones. We've got deep things of dead leaves that had accumulated over the years and produced wonderful soil, but it was blocking the way and stopping the pathway through. So my plan is that Brenda DaCosta will be able to get her mobility scooter up No Name Lane. That's my plan. Stuart and Gary took copious notes. They've agreed which bits of the lane are housing, which bits of the lane are highways. They've agreed a plan, and I want to be walking down there when I'm no longer a councillor, after I've retired, being able to touch both sides without being encroached with their greenery. but I think we've actually got everyone singing from the same hymn sheet at the moment. And the only thing I've got left to do myself is just the fence down the side backs onto the primary and secondary school, so 4 dwellings. I need to have a word with them because there's a lot of fly tipping on their side. And in order to improve, shall we call it the curb appeal, the street scene, we need that removed as well, because I think if that stays and it's visible from an alleyway that will be cleared, it's just going to encourage more to arrive. So I will have a word with the academy and see whether they can be persuaded to tidy up their side of the fence. But I was just so pleased. It was an absolute success to walk down that lane and make sure that people have actually labelled bits. And I think I have to thank housing, because we've now got Joanne Brown and Jackie Easthope working in housing. They're both absolutely cracking officers, and they've managed to get that thing. And I think they're really beginning to make a difference. Melanie.
2 very quick things. I think with the fly tipping, and recently I've tried to get into a tip. I'd probably have more luck winning the lottery than getting into a tip. Is there anything that can be done on the back of the clean-up to make it more accessible for you to be able to take things to a tip? For example, if you go in a van because you've got a mattress, you can't, because they clash with commercial. If you can get an appointment in the first place.
Yeah, you should be able to get appointments, same day appointments, certainly for Lifford Lane. They're definitely available.
It really, it's almost impossible.
Is around if you need a van, that's a problem, because sometimes they'll have that as commercial.
Yeah, but there has to be a point, because you can't keep cleaning up. There has to be a point that makes it more accessible. But what I actually wanted to go back to, sorry, when you were saying about the resurfacing, and I apologise for going backwards, with all the conversations that you're having with the resurfacing, is there any talk of providing cycle lanes? Because you risk your life and limb going down the Hagley Road cycling. There's opportunities when you resurface or redo to create. Yeah. Is there any discussions around that?
We are. I'll come on later in what I'm saying, because I've been out with Councillor Wazim Zafar, but I haven't actually got an answer for that. The main cycleway, well, we've got the best cycleway in Birmingham actually at the moment, the one that runs through Woodgate Valley and then pops across and then joins up by the hospital and goes all the way into town. I cycle that quite frequently. Actually, I'll be honest, I haven't done it for 2 months because the weather's been so grotty, but I do use that, and that is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, if you want to get into Birmingham on your bike, it's an absolute dream. Yeah, again, I know it's on the council's list of things to do to encourage cycling. They're doing a lot of work around schools. They have a WOW scheme and Mode Shift Stars, which is about getting people to think about ways of getting their children to school and children getting to school without them being driven. So they have the WOW thing is walk once a week, to just encourage people to at least once a week not to drive their children to school, but to park some distance and walk. They're going to be doing air quality monitoring in primary schools around the city. They're looking for a primary school in every ward. They still haven't picked one for us yet. I've sent them some recommendations of ones that I thought would be good, because they want to monitor air quality. So there's a big drive in the city to look for cleaner, greener ways of moving children and young people, because it's not only about the pollution and the air quality, it's about the health of our children and young people. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But they're also very dangerous for cyclists. So if you forget the changes to the highway code, but if you're pushed into the road to go over, or into the middle to go over that little gap that's left, it's extremely dangerous, and car drivers really don't pay attention. They're in their own little world.
Yeah.
So to have a lane just for a cyclist, for example, if you're doing a resurfacing, I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah, no, it is something that we're looking at. Dominic, I've seen out on his bike. He's seen me out on mine. So it is something that we're both very acutely aware of. I'm going to take your question first, and then we'll do Tom's, and then we'll come to Barry.
Very quickly on Hagley Road, and potentially Hagley Road West as well. That is one of the roads identified on Andy Street's Starley network, which is his vision for a connected city and West Midlands region for proper cycle lanes. With that in mind, obviously the metro is also being extended up the Hagley Road as far as the Bearwood crossing. So I don't know if when they dig that up, if they're considering putting in a cycle lane alongside the tram, hopefully not on the same tracks. So we'll try and look into that. Who was first? Steve?
Okay, I commend your idea of trying to get children onto bicycles to go to school, but from a safety point of view, shouldn't the council, I mean, when I was a child, schools did cycling proficiency tests. There's too many people getting on bikes who've got no idea how to behave on a bike in relation to cars, and cars are just as much to blame as cyclists, but they need training before they go on the road. Is there any money in the education pot to do cycling proficiency tests at schools?
There are people doing cycle training. Put your fingers in your ears, Elliot, because it's the Active Wellbeing Society. So if you go on to, probably Twitter's the best way, if you look that up, this is Cllrs working with the council. So they do cycle training, they do cycle maintenance. The cycle training isn't just for children, it's for big grown-up people as well. So there's clubs and groups you can join where they'll give you a bike for the session, and they'll give you the protective equipment, and then get you out there, get you used to riding the bike. So there's quite a lot of things out there. No, they advertise all the time. Again, it is done through the internet. So if you have a look on the Birmingham City Council website, Learn to Cycle, you'll find some. It's in the Active Wellbeing Society, is the ones who are doing it. Cllrs.
Talking about cycle lanes, right? Quinton Road West. I was on my bike 3 years ago, went between the curb and the speed hump. A bus come up, right? He knocked me off my bike, right? 2 weeks later, I was riding on the pavement. 2 police officers, which is unusual to see, was walking down Quinton Road West, right? They stopped me, said, "What are you riding on there for?" I said, "Last time I got knocked off my bike," right? She turned round, she said, "You've got big wheels there." She said, "You should be on the road." While she was talking to me, a chap on a bloody motorbike come over the glass verge all the way up. I said, "How about him?" She said, "We can't catch him." I said, "Oh, yeah, true." But the point is, as I was saying, regardless the speed humps and that, they are dangerous to cycles, because if you're going up the side of the curb, between the
Don't go between the side of the curb.
When the cars come up,
no, you need to be maintaining your central road position.
Yes, but they come up, instead of them pulling over, they come up the side of it, and if you're there, they couldn't care less. Okay, they bought a new highway code ruling out that you got to give 1.5 metres to a cyclist. But they don't make much difference if there's a speed hump there, because they're going to come and knock you off your bike.
Yeah,
so
I can't be accountable for other road users, I'm afraid. I am a cyclist myself, so I do know exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to bring in Barry because he's been very patient.
No, sorry, just to say, I think the problem with the tip mentioned is if you're retired and you get there during the day, you can always get in, no problem. I go loads of times by booking an appointment. The problem, of course, is if you're picking rubbish up at weekend and organising weekend collections, you're stuffed, because it's so busy then that they're always full up. So
my understanding is it's less busy now than it was, and I know that even on a Saturday and Sunday, when I was speaking to Councillor John O'Shea, who was out with just a few days ago, he was saying you usually can, if you go in the morning, even on a Saturday and Sunday, you should be able to get a slot. That might change a little bit as we go into the summer and the better weather, but you should be able to get one. Okay, so I'm going to carry on with my list. So I did a walkabout with Councillor Shabrana Hussain, who's the Cabinet Member for Homes and Neighbourhoods, and again with Jim, kept Jim very busy recently, who's Chair of the Quinton Housing Liaison Board now. At the time he was acting Chair or temporary Chair of the Housing Liaison Board. We focused on our latest walkabout around Faraday Road shops, where I'd had a lot of complaints about fly tipping to the rear and to the side. So you've got 1 to 17 of Faraday is shops, and at each end, I think there used to be toilets at one end, and there's a bit of, I think there might have been toilets at the other end as well. Both those areas attract fly tipping, and behind the shops attracts fly tipping. So we went through that and recorded all that, and that's all been reported. The back of Faraday Road shops, I understand, has been put on what they call on plan, which means it should be maintained, and it wasn't looking too bad, but it wasn't looking as good as it should do. And certainly it had accumulated some fly tipping, but that should be cleared up. We then went for a drive about with Shabrana, and I took her along and showed her where I've got real issues, which is the margin between houses on Martley Croft, First Meadow Piece, Simmons Drive, Highfield Lane, and the park, where a lot of people just take their fly tipping and throw it. And because it's not part of the obvious street scene, i.e. you can't see it from Martley Cross, First Meadow Piece, Simmons Drive and Highfield, it's a kind of hidden area. So we had a look at that with Shabrana. They are struggling with homes and neighbourhoods, particularly with the housing, to manage that. So later brought in John O'Shea, and he came out. We had a really good walk around that margin of land around the valley. It was really interesting because while we were doing that, we were identifying tie tipping. Now we have been assailed with fridges in Quinton. I don't know whether you've noticed, I think I've reported about 15 recently. I'm sure you've reported the same 15 and some more as well. Now, when one fridge is out on the pavement, you can be pretty sure that one of the residents has just taken it out and dumped it. When there's 2 fridges, that's a bit funny. When you're getting 3, that's quite obvious criminal fly tipping. And what we've actually had in Quinton is we've had trucks arriving with fridges in the back, and they've just thrown out 3 here, driven down the road, 4 there, driven down the road, 2 here. And that's what's happened. So it's criminals targeting this area to get rid of the bits of the fridge that they can't get money for. Now, what actually happens is, I think in a lot of cases, they will rock up at someone's house, quite often it's travellers, and say, we'll take that fridge away for you for a £5 or for a £10. They then pile them in the back of the vehicle, they take the metal out of them, and then unfortunately, because they're unlicensed and they would get charged if they went to the tip, they then just dump them. So it's becoming an increasing problem. So if I could just encourage residents, if you can report it to us, that's great. If you can get a registration number, take a picture, or are prepared to give a witness statement, even better, because it's been particularly bad. I don't think I've ever seen a kind of plague of fridges that we've had the last 3 weeks. It's been absolutely ridiculous,
I think
to be honest.
we had over 15 dumped in a single weekend,
Yeah.
which is new.
We're just quite obviously being tracked for that. And then I got to a huge pile of fly tipping. Samantha was with me, and we ummed and ahed and we huffed and puffed, and I started taking pictures and getting this reported, and then a very worried householder came out, and she had done exactly the right thing. What it was is she had booked her bulky waste to have it collected, and she was a bit worried because she thought I was going to get her on, I don't know, Central News complaining about this. So we've sorted all that out. But just to remind you, bulky waste, the number one thing is if you've got large items, quite often charities will come and pick it up. If it's furniture, for example, British Heart Foundation will come and get it. There's lots and lots of things you can do through the charities. Smaller items you can take yourself to the charity shops. There's Freegal, which you can use, which is a kind of peer, I've got this if you want to come and get it system. And then if it really does come to the point where you do need to actually get rid of it, it can't be recycled, it can't be reused, it's not much use to anybody else. £33 buys you 10 large items, so that's 10 sofas or a sofa, an armchair and another 8 items. 2 big full bin bags counts as 1 item. So for £33 they will remove 20 bin bags of refuse for you. So it's really worth just encouraging people to remember that. The other thing is we've got the mobile household recycling units now. Recently, this year, we've had them on Liam Drive in the Harborne bit. We've had them on Chichester. drive in February, and we've had them on Bolden Road in March. I actually did a pop-up surgery at the Chichester Drive one, which was lovely. Got to meet lots of the residents. I'm really pleased to say that the Mobile Household Recycling Centre has been now shortlisted for an award with the Local Government Association, which is great. It's come as such a good idea. When I went to the one last time, it was up at the top of Simmons Drive outside the shops. I actually saw some people, I thought, what are they doing there? And they were councillors who'd come down from Manchester Council to have a look to see how it worked, and they were just full of praise for it. It's been very, very popular. It's been very, very successful with residents, so we'll keep on doing that. If anybody has got an area where they think they'd like that to come, we do try and move it around the ward. We try and take it where we think residents would like it. It has to be a certain area. You've got to have the space to take the vehicles and where it won't cause disruption to the rest of the residents. But it is proving really successful. Elliot.
Thank you. We used the one on Bolden Road. All the green waste and all the other waste and the plastics and everything else all went in the back of the big truck. So why we segregated our green waste, I can't think.
In fairness, if you were to segregate them and send them to the council, in any case, only about 29% of our recycling is actually recycled by Birmingham City Council at present. We've got the 5th worst recycling rate of any local authority in the country, so don't be too upset about when it goes into the van, because it won't be separated and recycled anyway.
Yeah, so I know that the paper is put in separately. Did they have the 2 wagons when they came to Bolden Road? Okay, I'll raise that with Councillor O'Shea on your behalf.
Yeah, we were there quite early. We were there from about 7 onwards, and it was being done. It may be that they got full, but the guys were certainly separating stuff, and then, yeah.
Yeah,
we were there for about 2.5
if the
hours.
truck is full, they have to send one off. They try and get one to arrive before the other one goes. But I will raise that, and that's particularly on Bolden Road, because I haven't seen that happen before. But I will raise that with Councillor O'Shea. Yeah, okay. I'll make sure that point is made.
So, very briefly, Dominic mentioned a couple of forums ago about CCTV. Is there any update on that? Because the area, I live at the top of Ridgeacre Lane, just where the houses are raised and there's a grass verge. I can guarantee every Sunday night, fly tipping on that grass
And
reservation.
also there's an issue there.
I am sick of having to log online every week and report fly tipping. I'm sick of doing the council's job for them.
That's the area also. We've got some people who have to use bin bags as well, aren't we? And I think I've sat there once and saw it happen. I saw the residents bring their bin bags out because they can't have wheelie bins because they're too high up. And then I saw other people arriving with bin bags and putting them out with the residents' bin bags. That is an area. Yeah, no, I mean, that is a real area of concern, and that's actually where I was about to report this bulky waste being dumped, and the woman came flying out to speak to me. So the issue around cameras, so we now have got some mobile cameras. There are 2 ways in which you can do mobile cameras. You can have an overt or a covert camera. So if you've got an overt camera, that's great, it's there, it's got a big notice saying, we are watching you, this place is being monitored for CCTV. Now that won't catch you any fly tippers, but it will put people off fly tipping, which is great. And then the other kind of camera we've got are the covert ones, and they are the hidden ones where we're actually stalking out that area. And unfortunately, to use those, you have to have a court order. So it's a real balance between doing it. So all I can do is assure you, at the moment I'm aware, because I sit on Homes and Neighbourhoods Overview and Scrutiny, is that we have, I think it's 12 cameras out at the moment. They're spread across wards in the city. I think it's 12 cameras over 10 wards. I know there's a couple of wards where we've got 2 cameras because they are particularly badly hit. And they will move them around. But I think it's getting the court order that can sometimes be the problem. You can't film people covertly unless you've had a court of a judge say that you can do it in that position. So they will move, it will move around, but we just have to stick to the law of the land. I think we've got Tom with a question.
Yeah, I don't know if you're picking up on a couple of petitions that we've organised for CCTV on Ridgeacre Road West by the Scout Hut, and then also one for not four dwellings, between 4 acres and 6 acres, which are 2 fly tipping hotspots. As of yet, we've had no response to any of those requests. And there are, as you say, Kate, 12 cameras, mobile cameras that are now being used around the city, but as of yet, not in our ward.
Yeah, so they've listed, there are 10 different wards, and they will move them around because obviously the minute somebody knows. Sorry? Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's going to come down to cost anyway. But we have 12. They will be moved around. They will be used, and I'm not sure how many are going to be overt and how many are going to be covert, but they will be used.
As regards this fly tipping and all this rubbish being dumped all over the place. I mean, Birmingham City Council, they say, Ian Ward, he says it ain't the council's fault, but it is the council's fault. I mean, for instance, like, you've got to be selective what you put in your waste bins, right? They won't take it, and so they leave bags at the side. If people bags the side of the bins, they don't take them. Obviously, now, Richard Bashford, I've said this before, he fought hard to keep to get the tips open so we could use them. Jim's here, Jim knows what I'm going to say, right? Because at the ward meetings, we used to have people come from the Kings Norton place. Do you remember his name, Jim? I can't think of his name. He used to come. And no, and obviously, people are dumping the rubbish. Not only that, as regards as ringing up to make an appointment to go to take rubbish to the tip. Now, if I was working and I went to my gaffer and says, I can't come in Thursday morning, why? I got an appointment to take my rubbish to the tip. I know he'd tell me to do, and he certainly wouldn't be go and have a point on me. That's dead certainty. It's all rubbish, all wrong. People need to take the stuff and be able to take the stuff to the tips. I used to take my neighbour's rubbish to the tip, right? But when you get there, you're only allowed to take so much. If you drop your seat and your car, and like an estate car like mine is, you can drop the seat, put extra stuff in. If you drop your seat, that classes as a van. They won't let you.
I don't think that's right.
Oh, that's right.
I've taken stuff to the tip with my seats dropped.
I had it happen to me some time ago when he first started. It's a load of crap. It is absolutely crap.
I know you can take stuff to the tip with your seats moved and tipped. I know that's the case.
Birmingham City Council need to do something about it.
Right. Well, I'll have a word with Councillor O'Shea. There's a lady at the back who's had a hand up for a while.
Oh, sorry.
I will have a word with Councillor O'Shea, and I'll mention the problems that we've got with the recycling units and with issues that you think you might have around the tip, and see if I can find out whether they're going to continue with making appointments, or whether you're going to be able to just rock up. Lady at the back.
Hi. Regarding fly tipping, I live on Beach Avenue, and there's an alleyway which come where Happy Days Nursery is at the back.
So which road did you say?
Beach Avenue.
Beach Avenue off Quinton
Lane. Quinton. So there's an avenue, there's an alleyway there which you can walk through. I've been battling with the council now for about 7 months. Someone has harvested cannabis and disposed the harvest there. So you start off with 1 bag, 2 bags, 3 bags, and now there's probably 4 or 5 bags of seeds. So when I flag it to the council says it's nothing to do with them. When I flagged it to Dom a few times that we need this removed because it's right behind Happy Days Nursery. So as you're walking through, you could kind of smell it. And as cars are driving in and out of the alleyway, they're disturbing it.
So it's green waste that's been left over from a cannabis farm?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if, I'll come and speak to you, or Dominic will, and we'll get the exact location and get
So
that
the
removed.
issue with that is that where, assuming I've got the location right, I was up there last week. There's a few flats above the shops that have access via that path, and equally it's where the garages are for all the businesses on that strip.
Yeah, that's what the council keeps saying.
So that's the problem. Because it's not a council-owned or maintained alleyway, they're kind of saying it's not their responsibility.
But then, you know, when you're talking about the fridges, it's been allowed to dumpster there too in the alleyway.
Yeah, unfortunately, the council can only remove fly tipping from its own land. We can't come onto your property and take stuff that's been left on your property because you might claim that it's yours. It's so if somebody fly tips on council land, housing, highways, common land that belongs to the council, council removes it. But if the fly tipping is on private land, it's up to the person whose land has been fly tipped to remove it, unfortunately. That's the law. Right, if I come and see you, we'll see if we can identify who the ownership of the land is, and then we can ask them. If it's not the council, we can ask the owners to remove the fly tipping, but we can't force them to.
Okay, you mentioned that you've raised on your walks around, basically with the fly tipping around Faraday. Can I ask who you advised on that one? Because I know through Street Watch we'd informed of some of the fly tipping either side of those areas, but we were advised through Street Watch that that wasn't council property, that because it belonged to the shops where they'd actually located it, where the bins were, that they weren't going to move it. It was up to the shops to actually do it.
Right,
So,
there's a bin store area.
yeah, that's exactly it.
At the end, which I assume is where the shops waste goes. But then the two bits at each end is actually housing land.
Yeah,
and
so
the bit to the rear
because
is
it backs
housing.
onto just by the fence by the flats, we thought it was part of the flats because that's where they put all their waste bins, the wheelie bins.
Yeah.
But when we reported that through Street Watch and the Fix My Street app, they were advising us, so the council came back to us saying, sorry, that isn't council lands, it's part of basically the flats or the shops. So we did the one either side as well. So we were quite confused with that as well.
No, there is an interesting one there because there was a discussion about the flats had been sold to the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
But then it's been released to the council. So my understanding is that they've accepted it, but what I would ask you to do, can you have a look the next time you go, maybe give it a week. If it's gone, then they've obviously accepted it from me that it's council. If it hasn't gone, you just let me know and I'll go back. And,
yeah, I mean, as we do the Street Watch walks, it's a case of if we do spot anything that has previously been reported, then obviously we go and check to make sure it's either been fixed or it's still an issue, and then we can update on the app. You mentioned earlier on with regards to the fridges, the ones that I know that are still actually located in the same situation or same areas is you've got one on Ridgeacre Road, which is directly opposite Tesco's. You've got 3 on Overdale Road down the bottom. You've got 3 at the back of First Meadows Peace, 1 on Minton Road, just as you come off West Boulevard, and 1 on Hunslet Road. So those fridges, as of this morning, were still there. So that's 9 fridges that are still in situ.
Road is Harborne. Yeah. So Council Battle if you want. If you just send me a list, I'll make sure they
yeah, because I mean, all these have been raised again through
The problem with the fridges,
My
it can
Street.
take 10 to 15 days because they have to have a truck with a lift at the back.
I don't want to tell you how long the one on Minton Road has been there, then I'll just upset you.
But I mean, you know, I know Councillor Stanford's reported them, I've reported them, I know residents have reported them, but we've just been blitzed by.
No, exactly, and I think the whole community is doing exactly the same. So where we are spotting them, we're reporting them, we're making sure that they are on the relevant areas and on the council websites. So it does take time. 10 or 15 days in some cases. Sorry about that. That's all right.
Just very briefly on the Faraday Avenue toilet block situation, I was actually dealing with a resident or business interest that wanted to buy where those old toilet blocks are at the top end, which is obviously where some of the fly tipping is. And I was just checking on my phone with the email. Whilst the toilets were owned by Birmingham City Council, the land by the Transportation Department, it was sold freehold in 1999 along with the Lloyd's unit, which was also sold freehold. So as far as I'm aware, it's either Lloyd's that still own it or another private individual who owns that toilet block, according to the council's letter to me.
Oh God, Faraday Avenue. The flats are terrible, they need knocked down for a start. Birmingham City Council Housing, as it was then, bought that property in 1924. For some strange reason, they leased it back, give it back to this church, which Methodist church in Quinton, I don't know, in 1947. What I know is that the piece of land at the back of it, those flats had all got their own gardens at one time. And I got to thank Councillor Hussein for her swift response to that. That piece of land at the back of there, which is, it's the Higgins Lane entrance to that. That's a prime site, absolutely brilliant for housing or shopping or something like that. However, those people that live in those block of flats, I did a tongue-in-cheek pamphlet about 15 years ago about those flats. I would advise anybody just to have a walk down and take a look where those people live. We've spent an awful lot of money through the HLB's budget and trying to get those flats. It needs capital investment in there. The shops, there's a door at the back of each shop which leads into those flats. It still does. And outside it, there's whacking great big, what do you call it, air conditioning things, and they're like, most people live with it. I mean, and not only that, when Councillor Booth and I and Councillor Hussein walked about, I was amazed to see the vandalised telephone box had been reinstated. Oh, one of the doors was broken. Someone needs to do something about Faraday Avenue. Find out actually who owns it. I've been on to Marie Brown, and the advice that I got from Marie Brown was that, as we said, was housing back to the Methodist Church. As far as I'm not aware that it belonged to Lloyd's, because above Lloyd's, one of those properties one of those flats was sold under the right to buy years ago. You know, so fly tipping. Maybe somebody's going to throw a rotten tomato at me. I live in a cul-de-sac, and if people park on the road, as which the government's going to say you can't park on the footpath, no one will get down the road. We came in an agreement years ago with Councillor Matthew Gregson and the police and the waste that we would park on one side of the road on a Monday. Well, it was a Wednesday, there's a Monday now, to let access through. We actually park on the footpath. And people have said, why are you parking on the footpath? I said, you don't live here. I'm not going to tell you the story about it. Our refuse collection, the wheelie bins, absolutely brilliant. They'll go the extra mile. In the wintertime, we come out and help them come down the road, clean it. We have a cup of tea waiting for them when they come down in the morning. They're brilliant. Now, I'm speaking for the crew that does my road. I'm not speaking for the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a really good local solution there where the residents have agreed to just park on the one side, and I think you call it a half and half, and everyone agrees to that, and that works really well. The most frequent reason that we get or have been getting for non-collection is when people block the ends of the kind of cul-de-sacs, so places that are not Woodbridge. What's the one just before Woodbridge? Yeah, so there are a number of ones that we know are particularly bad. And at the moment, I did have a note from Councillor John O'Shea on Monday. They are struggling at the moment with getting HGV drivers. So there have been a few issues this week with non-collection that's been around not actually having enough drivers for the vehicles. Now they're trying everything they can through agency staff, but as I'm sure we're all aware, there is a shortage of HGV drivers in this country at the moment. So that they're moving it around, they're spreading the difficulty around the city so that we're not getting the same wards and same constituencies hit on a regular basis. But there have been a number of problems this week, and I envisage that will probably go on for a few more weeks. And it's not because they're not, it's just because we can't get the drivers. Anyway, I will continue. So continue with the walkabouts. Been concentrating quite a bit on sheltered housing. So we had a look around with the Housing Liaison Board, Toronto Gardens the other day. Jim and I have been at Rosemount. We got some lovely people from the Edgbaston neighbourhood networks in today to actually start some coffee mornings. And we had a really, really successful coffee afternoon with some absolutely fabulous cakes. We had, how many residents did we get? About 10, 12 residents all turned up. They were really pleased to see us getting something started again. I've gone on to the WhatsApp and seen if we can get some support from Blooming Quinton to help us tidy up their gardens, which have got in a little bit of disarray, and then the residents themselves will be able to keep on top of that once we've done tidying. So hopefully we'll get round our sheltered accommodation, Toronto Gardens, Rosemount and Moat Meadows, and just try and increase the connectivity between those people living in that sheltered housing. And I think it tends to be people over the age of 55, but that's been very, very successful today. And today we had the AGM of the Quinton Housing Liaison Board. So we've got a new committee with hopefully revitalised members joining it. Looking at other issues, I've mentioned my surgery, I've mentioned the food bank. I just want to mention, so I think perhaps if I do the tours bit now, and then we can do perhaps the community group and the residents groups and do the Queen Elizabeth Jubilee last. So can I read you what I've had about the tours situation, which I managed to get this afternoon, having been promised it on Friday. Just give me one moment, here we go. So if I read you what the city solicitor has sent me, because I know there was concern about the lift money and the tours, and I haven't got a final answer, but I have got something. So I apologise for the delay in responding to your email, but wanted to update as follows and prior to your ward forum meeting. 1, I have discussed the background to the tours lift with relevant officers and now understand how they were commissioned. I also understand the views and perceptions shared in respect of governance arrangements, performance and delivery regarding the tours lift. Whilst tours cannot claim to have the gold standard in terms of the way they operate, having looked into the issue, there are no matters that have been brought to my attention that currently warrant a referral to internal audit from my perspective. Additionally, I work closely with Sarah Dunleavy from Audit, and she has not raised any matters with me that have been brought to her attention from any other routes, as sometimes occurs with audit concerns. And thirdly, I have asked relevant officers to provide me with a written briefing following up on our discussions, and I hope to receive this in the next few working days. Once I receive this, I'm happy to share this with you to provide further assistance to you and your constituents. I hope the above assists you for now and in relation to your ward forum meeting later today. And that was from Satinder Sahota, who's the interim director of legal services. So as soon as I get that, I will send it to the people who are involved in that trail at the moment.
It would appear that what the solicitor is saying is, having talked to all the staff who've covered things up so far, the fact that we've got 4 notice boards at an estimated cost of £3,000 to £11,000, and a failure to deliver on virtually every other dimension is okay.
I think perhaps because we haven't got the previous city solicitor, we've got an interim one now, perhaps we need to resend your original letter, and this might be exactly the right point to do that. Do you want to send that to me, or shall I just send the one that, the letter you sent? Just to make sure that it ends up with Satinder Sahota.
I had a worthwhile meeting with yourself and others, including Dom,
at which we highlighted just how in detail the report that was given at the end just covered over the fact that of the failure. And I don't mind them failing. What I mind them doing is walking away with £48,000 that should have been spent in Quinton.
Yeah.
The letter, I don't think rewriting the letter would make it any different.
No, I wasn't talking about, I was just talking about making sure that sit-in as a hotel had seen it.
So I think we, from that meeting, and obviously using the kind of evidence that was compiled and documents and the history and whatnot, that was then referred to the head of neighbourhoods. Yes. And we have still not at any point received an update from the head of neighbourhoods on that. From the wording of the city solicitor's email, which that's the first time I've heard it as well, it sounds as if he's bounced to officers to find out if they've had any reports of things going wrong, particularly to the head of audit he references. I'm struggling to see how us as councillors and the residents that have raised the concerns via us and have pushed that hard with the heads of neighbourhoods and then subsequently with the city solicitor, it doesn't sound to me like there's been any kind of communication at all with the head of neighbourhoods that have provided that information to the city solicitor at all.
Or with ourselves, direct.
Or, yeah, indeed, with the residents. So.
Sorry, did I misunderstand, Kate? Okay, sorry, was that a final response or was that a holding response from this? So we're still doing, so there's still an opportunity to do more.
I think
just forwarding it to Elliot, Barry,
I think the implication from that email is that there will be some kind of written report, which I assume will have to come from neighbourhoods, who are the department we've been chasing all along, to give us a written report and to carry out an internal investigation. No doubt that report will not address the concerns that we have been raising for the last 9 months or 4 years, however long you guys have been on it. So
could I come in on this, please?
We have to read that written report and then go back and refer that, highlight all of the inconsistencies again, and take that back up to the city solicitor, who hopefully will be the same one that we currently have as an interim and doesn't change into somebody else.
Barry, I think you wanted to come in. Oops.
Sorry, yeah, can I just come in on this, please? This is about £38,000 of unaccounted for money. £10,000 sort of has been accounted for. The notice boards have gone from £2,000 to £9,100 for 4 wooden notice boards. The website, which was £8,000, was implemented at £8,000 charge, and it was never implemented because it was said from the word go, it wasn't viable. This is a disgrace. It really does need to be open. The people evaluating this process are the people who worked to bring these groups in. So this group in. So we just want accountability and transparency, and it is not there.
So what we need to understand is that the notice boards, I understand, were made by Parks, who would have billed. No, were they not?
No, they weren't.
Oh, Friends of Parks, okay. So, I mean, that's certainly a starting point would be with the notice boards.
It's not the notice boards, it's about the £38,000 for deliberative democracy and what was done about deliberative democracy and who was paid to do it.
Well, so, let's see what Zinda Hota comes up with, and we'll carry on with that one, but yeah.
Sorry, unfortunately, the can's being kicked down the road again, and I think that's what we've got to accept, because we're just going to get more and more cross here, but nothing happens. We need a final report and we need to respond.
Yeah, so it does say, provide me with a written briefing, and I hope to receive this in the next few working days. So I was promised this note on Friday and it's arrived this evening. So let's hope it will arrive in the next week or so. Okay, so I will move on from that. I'm going to bring in some of our...
Just before you move on, Councillor, I think Barry's still there. We've had this and Elliot Barry may have had this conversation for ages. When people come into Quinton to do a job, irrespective of what agency they are, there's got to be more scrutiny and more public accountability on what they're actually doing and feedback. You know yourself, with the Housing Liaison Board, the budget that we have, and you hold the capital investment budget for us, we have to account for every penny. That is rent payers' money. This is public money. And to kick, as Elliot says, to kick the can down the road, well, you could kick it down, kick it back again. It doesn't resolve the problem. There are agencies coming into Quinton and saying they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing the other thing. And dare I say it, parks, every time you mention doing something in parks, there's an ongoing cost. We can get equipment from the preferred provider and manufacturer at half the price that parks actually are charging for some of this stuff.
Yeah, so there is the issue, they have to build the maintenance in, isn't there? But yeah, we are where we are. We've got money coming in, celebrating communities. Let's just make sure that our eyes are on that. I mean, I'm sure that, you know. Yeah, I do understand that. Yeah. So we've got a number of community groups who would like to give us an update. I'm not going to do them in any particular order, but we've got Claire online, and I think we've had a number of issues around the arrangements with the Woodhouse Primary Academy and Pittswood, which I think Claire is going to help us understand. You there, Claire?
Yep. Can you hear me? Right, well, we've had, thanks to Elaine Kidney's tree falling down and Barry's quick thinking, we got a huge load of wood chippings to put down on the pathways. So if anybody sees a tree being chopped down and they don't know what to do with the wood chippings, we can always have loads of wood chippings in Pittswood. Remember that. We've got a new Facebook person now, so we're trying to update all our Facebook information. We've had the Birmingham Black Country Wildlife Group to look at the so-called pond, which is a bit of an excuse for a pond, and all the little bits of water courses and the boggy area. And they've given us a quote for improving it, making it safe for the children and anybody else who comes into it, and it'll cost about 6,000. So we've started to look at getting a grant for that. Unfortunately, we've hit a bit of a false stop now, because there's the new leadership of the academy, and they've suddenly realised that they've actually got a wood to look after as well as a school. And they've also realised that the wood's got a pond in it and some water. So unfortunately, they've sent the head to put all these very unfriendly notices up, which some of you might have seen on the gates. Now, that has nothing to do with the Friends group. We're very upset about these unfriendly notices because we see it as a community asset, and so does the head. He had to stop using the wood with the children for a week while the academy sent in some health and safety people. And that's resulted in the caretaker having to put a rail down the side of the steps coming from school, so that the children have an easier way to get down into the wood. Anyway, for years, for a couple of years, we've been working really well with the head, Mr. Wilson. We've had no problems at all. And so Peter and Vina and I had a meeting with Mr. Wilson and a rep from the academy, where it transpired.
You've suddenly gone on to mute, Claire. I don't know if you can unmute yourself.
Is that off now? Flexibility that Mr. Wilson had before to work with us and to agree with us everything that we did, and he always sent information through to the academy. Somehow it's not as flexible anymore, so we've had to hold fire with getting a grant and moving on a bit. I've sent them details of the past work that's been done in the wood, all the money that's been spent on it, the past friends and what they've done. We've also sent over a constitution, which I have to say they'd already got anyway. And so now we're just waiting for a meeting with another representative from the Academy, who is the treasurer. And before we have our meeting with him and Mr. Wilson again, he's going to meet with Birmingham Council, and we don't quite know what he's going to try and sort out there, and we don't know what he wants to bring up with us at the moment. So that's watch this space. And there's about 3 to 6 people at any one time working in the wood, and the wood's looking smashing. The bluebells are beginning to come, so keep your eye open for having a bluebell walk.
Thanks very much for that, Claire. I had tried to track down who the meeting is with, so I contacted Cabinet Member for Education, Skills and Culture. Unfortunately, she's had a bereavement this week, so she hasn't got back to me. But if the message has gone out to her area to see if we can find out who that meeting was with. I can see Barry's got his hands up online, and then I'll take Peter in the room. Yeah, I'll take Barry first online and then Peter in the room.
Okay,
Barry.
Please bear with me, because this is directly related to what Claire's talking about. I put some posters up the other day on behalf of the youth club that operates in the Quimborne. I've forgot her name. The lady who runs it lives up by Four Dwelling School.
Simone.
Simone. Sorry, yeah, I keep wanting to say Nicole for some reason. Okay, so 2 teachers were supervising at the bus stop, experienced teachers from the school. So we had a conversation about other stuff, but then I asked them if they would take a poster and put it up in the school, the local secondary school, up at Fifield, Four Dwellings. Their answer was no. And I asked why not, because the Academy has its own policies. One of them is they don't advertise anything external. Now, where the hell are we, please?
Yeah, exactly.
Where the hell are we with the very institutions now run by academies that should be supporting our community? It's not only that, but BCC policies such as the Future Parks Accelerator and Sustainable Finance Framework, which I have in front of me, and the parks themselves, every time we are trying to do stuff as volunteers, including raising money, we are being hammered by jobs worth policies, documentation. Where is the support for those of us in the community who are wearing ourselves into a frazzle? It isn't there.
There is group, there's the outdoor group. Claire, I think Pittswood are aligned with them, aren't there? Isn't there a group, Peter, with the outdoor spaces? Yeah, what's it called, Vina?
Birmingham Open Spaces Forum.
And they should be able to support with that. Unfortunately, academies are their own businesses and will behave sometimes like that. But thanks for those comments. Peter, did you want to come in?
Yes, I'll try and stick to the point. In other words, I thought we were talking about Pittswood. But the really concerning factor is this. At the request of not only the ward forum, but also of the city's legal officers, we decided to try and create a bit of a partnership with the Woodhouse Primary Academy. Now, that was the school and its head teacher, and we succeeded in that, and we had a very good, arrangement. And they, that is to say, the head, he approved our constitution, right, which laid down exactly what we were going to do, and had their, well, at least the head teacher's approval. Now, suddenly, after a number of years of work, hard work there, carrying out a management plan, This suddenly appears that as far as the Academy Trust is concerned, the Wolverhampton University Academy Trust, they are saying that they are the people who make the decisions, not their employee, the head teacher of the primary academy school. So this is, it's really concerning that they can suddenly change what, as far as the teacher was concerned, they originally had been perfectly happy with for a number of years. And as I say, this is what's really worrying, because we don't know, they haven't told us exactly, apart from saying that as far as they're concerned, the safety concerns, they have safety concerns, but it's not to say that if they have, okay, let's do something about them. But they're not doing with Birmingham City Council, and we don't know what about, and they're also then having a meeting with ourselves. But as I say, it's quite worrying that, as I say, they can behave in this manner. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's such a shame, because for a number of years, the head teacher has worked really, really well with the Friends group, and it's been working really well. I think my understanding is the meeting with the council is about Pittswood and a number of other things, so I don't think it's just about the woodland. But it's a real shame that the Academy Trust have come in heavy-handed when things have been going so brilliantly. Jim, can I bring you in, and then I'm going to come back to you, Barry.
I think Peter's aware of this. There's a shed in it, which was done by Mighty, who were the repairs contractor for the council. We got photographs of the kids and everything. All I wanted was a shed. But what Mighty did was that they actually put down a pathway and a handrail down into the woods. That now apparently is blocked off. When it was a primary school a few years back, before this grand academy, these nameless, faceless people took over, the school was very, very keen to hand it over to a trust. And it was going to be let at a peppercorn rent, which meant that it would have been accessible to the public. It isn't now. It's just there for the benefit of.
Yeah, we never got to the bottom of why it was what they call red-lined.
Well,
which means when it became an academy, for some reason the wood was included in the red line around the school, and I have not.
Yeah, but to be fair, councillor, there's a lot of people walking away from it because they think, hang on, where's this Pittswood? Let's go and see it. You can't come in. You need permission. Or you can't go in because the kids are in it. We're all out. It's an exclusive little piece of wood.
So unfortunately, we just have to accept
should belong to. I mean,
it is the academy.
An outstanding amount of money has been spent on that. There was national lottery funding was in it. £10,000 came from the ward forum for bridges and like that. An awful lot of work went into it, and yet. And Peter and Ben, I walked away from it because I thought, what's the point? There's no access to the public. And now we're told that you can't do this. And as for this pond, we all know it's not a pond. It's the run off the water. It's a little shook at the bottom of the.
I mean, it is shocking that we've worked so well with the school for so long, for so many years, and then the Academy Trust has come in and done this. I'm going to take Barry, then I'm taking Samantha, then I'm taking Melanie.
Yeah. Barry. Yeah, I'm sorry. What I was trying to do is be supportive of what Peter was trying to say and what Claire is obviously saying. We can punch little holes at people who like the academies and trusts. This is a Birmingham problem. Birmingham is a big council with academies all over the place. And what we're seeing described here at Pittswood, and when I spoke to those two teachers, it's not the heads and the teachers who work in those schools and want to be part of the community. There are the directives from these academies. Now, these academies, Birmingham has to stop writing Future Parks Accelerator, environmental justice frameworks and all this business and start actually tackling some of these basic problems. You want people to work in their communities to do this, that and the other, youth clubs, development of community resources at Highfield, Pittswood, Quinton Meadows, whatever, and yet we are being strangled by official making bodies who are above anything we can do to change them. Birmingham City Council has to take on board that responsibility. That's me.
Yeah, but Barry, academies have come from the government. It's the government who's promoted schools to turn into academies. The only people that could stop a school turning into an academy were parents, and parents aren't doing that. So this is what we've got, these awful academies that can push people away.
I'm sure as a Labour Party supporter, Claire, you will be fighting to change that.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Samantha, then I'm going to go to Melanie.
I think we're all probably agreed in this room and online that Pittswood is an amazing resource for the community, and we have to do what we can to try and protect it and to increase access to it. I've gone through the paperwork with Peter and Vina and a couple of others, and what I suspect has happened is someone has woken up at the head office of the trust and realised, oops, there is water and we think there is a pond and there is a public liability insurance problem here, and that's why they've taped it. And the only way to get round doing that is if we put enough pressure on them and shame them, quite frankly, to open it up again. And if the meeting that I know is being planned and Kate's going, and I don't know if Dominic's going to as well, doesn't produce anything, I am quite happy, and we will start to campaign in the community to do that, because this is a disgrace. The Forest School has worked extremely well and generations of children have benefited from it, and it is simply someone looking at an insurance risk and going, oh, we do not want to be sued because we have a public liability issue here. There are ways to get around that. There are undertakings that can be given, and the group can be constituted and the land can be reassigned if necessary. So let's see what comes out of the meeting, but if not, let's work together and try and preserve the wood.
Thanks very much for that. Yep. I'm going to pass over to Melanie, and then I'm going to let Melanie segue in from Pittswood to the issue that you've got on Clay Drive in Chichester.
Okay, thanks. What I was going to suggest kind of follows on for that. My background is health and safety. Please don't shoot me down in flames. What sort of comes to mind almost straight away, as soon as you say it is now recognised as private land and an academy is a business, somewhere down the line, either they've renewed a policy, this is an insurance clause, an insurance aspect, and from a group perspective, all these different academies, it might be something that the council might be able, if you ask the right questions, i.e. is this down to exclusion clauses, is this down to liability? If you're looking at the academies as a whole, maybe there's a group approach to this open land so that they can be used from an educational point of view. They have a right to stop people going onto private land. They have a right to protect themselves, but it's probably most likely down to an insurance aspect that the trust have whatever policy they're with, and it's been put upon them. So, and yes, people are suing more. We are more litigious than ever. So I was wondering whether or not it's a suggestion from the council's perspective, you can, from an educational point of view, work with them to work around this liability issue so that it can be opened up from an educational point of view again, because it might be that you need the approach of the council, if you like, to talk to them at that level. As individuals, I don't think you're going to do anything because they are, as you say, Kate, their businesses.
Yeah, and
so
it's a really difficult situation. To be honest, should never have
it doesn't. Yeah, but you're in that now, and I strongly suspect that it is an insurance issue. So you're not going to get much further. But as you, if you're happy for me to go on and tell you about the update.
Just let this gentleman come in with one quick point, and then if you could pass it back
just
to Melanie.
Briefly, what Melanie's saying, mentioned previously. Sorry. I've recently, as part of my bid last month for the funding, talked about letting other groups use our pavilion. I've emailed Bernie, who looks after the allotments, and she has told me any group that comes onto our site must have their own public liability insurance. So, and that's a council site.
Sounds as though it might be that then. So Melanie, give us an update on the situation on Clay and Chichester.
This, in the last few days, I've had an update from Highways England, Highways Agency, whatever they want to call themselves. You're aware that they took away the natural shield along the corridor of the M5 from the bottom of Clay up to Village Mews, which has had an impact on the larger area, not just the immediate residents. They are taking the high-handed approach. Surprise, surprise. Their response to us is worded, "We have now decided we are going to do this." What they are proposing is a mixture of planting that they are going to start straight away and then continue in October. And it will be a mix of planting, which will include some laurel, but not exclusive. Now, when I say high-handed approach, this is them saying, this is what we are going to do, but they have said that they've took advice from parks, Birmingham Parks. So they've kind of listened, but not really. And there's no apology or anything in it. This is what we're going to do. What they also said, which is worth bearing in mind, I don't agree with the timelines or anything else, so I'm not finished pushing yet. But what they've said is, I don't know if you're aware, but Quinton, and our area especially, is recognised and has been for a significant period of time as a noise important area, which means things need to be done correctly, which includes doing surveys, etc., before anything is done, because it's classed as a noise important area. And that's by DEFRA. So that cannot be argued against. It means that people their lives are impacted by the noise. So it has to be considered in any development, for example.
It's National Highways speak.
So according to DEFRA, we are an area that needs to be considered for noise impact onto the quality of life. That's Highways just decided that didn't exist, and the noise was a perception because you could see the traffic. Anyway, cut all that out. They have stated in this response that they will look at a noise barrier for the entire route within the classified noise important area, which may extend actually further than our small section. They've asked to do some noise readings, some air quality monitoring. I asked them to qualify what that would mean and the impact for the individuals who volunteered. They've chosen to ignore the response to that. So at the moment, we haven't given them anyone's names because I don't know what to tell people to expect from it, because I did ask. Hopefully by the end of this week, we will have a small action group for that area in place, or at least drafted. And I have it's a telephone appointment, but I have a meeting with Preet Gill herself on Thursday tomorrow to discuss that and what we're going to do, because I had asked her to progress this at parliamentary level. And the next level for us, once we've apparently exhausted all the avenues, there's a new department for monitoring the environment called the Office of Environmental Protection, the OEP. I've been advised that we need to evidence as much systematic failings for them to take us on board, because they're new and they're likely to be interested in only the big cases. So now we've already tried, and because we're being delayed and held back through the highways process, they're saying that to us, we haven't finished that process. But I think that last email from the head of planning with the wording that said, we are going to do this, we are going to do this and we will look at this over a 6-month period. So towards the end of the year, they will look at it. I think that's sufficient evidence that they've determined what they're going to do. They've decided. I've asked for escalation and they've ignored that request. So when I speak to Preet tomorrow, I'm going to be asking that she supports us directly with an approach to the OEP. And I know they're only a month old, but this could be a good one for them to get their teeth in, because it is systematic failings. They've failed to look at existing planning. They've failed to look at existing classification for area. They have failed to consider the impact on the residents and the environment, the immediate residents, the larger impact. From the point of view of where we need to go, we're never going to get 100%. It's going to look like a prison wall, but we still need that noise barrier. They're talking about resurfacing the motorway. They're talking about changing the lamps in the lights, but nothing within a 6-month period because they have to investigate. So I honestly think that we can argue we've come to the end of their due process. So as it stands at the moment, tomorrow I have a further meeting. I hopefully I have been away. I'm only back yesterday. I'm hoping that by Saturday, there's 4 of us. I'll still take more residents. There's 4 of us for a little community action group to push that forward so we can be more formal. And I'm going to ask before I leave tonight for an appointment for a date here at the church for a residents meeting within the next 2 weeks, so that we can do a full update proposal on this is what we've had, this is where we are. Please join us, but if not, please tell us what you want, because this is what it will be. I've looked at community funding. I've asked to be considered if there's any excess funds over, so that we can work with the residents and hopefully like the Scouts group and other community features, if we can go in and help people along that route that have been affected to improve their fencing and their own planting in their gardens, because a lot of them are elderly, so they can't physically do it, let alone afford it. Fingers crossed, we can be considered and we might get something. I might still talk to the Scouts anyway and see if they're willing to get a new badge.
There aren't any things I can think of offhand, but we have regular updates on funding that's available. Yeah. So I often send it to Barry and to
because
so we can start including you, Melanie, as well.
Great, because along that route, in the back of your garden, we can put the bird boxes, we can put the bee boxes, we can put bat boxes. I've been in touch with the Bat Conservation Society and they are interested. And I've had some information about bats as well along that route and what we need and what should have been considered. So I'm still exploring any and every single opportunity to get them and make them pay. But in the meantime, I'm also looking at what we can do as residents in our own garden and get some help to do that, because we are a small community that live along that corridor. But anything we do there will also benefit the wider residents on the estate. I'm not ignoring that either. So fingers crossed, it hasn't stopped. It's been quietly pushing on with both of yourselves helping. It's quietly pushing on in the background. And I've not given up. In fact, I'm probably more angry than I was at the beginning. So I'm not giving up.
That's great news. I think it would be a good idea if we can kind of have this. I know we have things like Pittswood and the Meadows as a regular feature. I think it would be certainly for the next year. We want to keep you right there at the start. So what I'm going to do is pass over to Peter, and then Peter, when you've had your say, because I think you're the only one with the hand up, if you can then give us a little update on Quinton Meadows.
Yes. I'd just like to say that I want to state the fact that from an environmental point of view, from Quinton Meadows Consultative Committee, the local environmental organisation, any cherry laurel included in a planting regime, a mixed one, would be unacceptable. We would be quite happy if it included conifers, as they originally were, in a mixed as it put mixed. Presumably mixed means including native, native trees. But the problem is that even if you only have some cherry laurel within this mixed planting, it will ultimately totally dominate everything else. And the connectivity issue is that it will not only dominate in that green corridor, but it will spread, and it'll spread down south into Quinton Meadows, and north it will spread into particularly the local Quinton recreation ground. So, as I say, it's just so good. It's so good at dominating and spreading. It spreads by seed, it spreads by suckers. And as I say, the only reason, we know the reason that Highways is interested in, at any cost virtually, carrying on, is because they've already spent £20,000 without coming and consulting most importantly with the residents, but also with any environmental organisation, local one. So that's why they are not willing. It's a financial thing as I see it. They're just not prepared to say, yes, we've made a huge mistake here and sorry, we'll have to cover that cost.
Yeah, so we'll just come very quickly back to Melanie and then we'll come back to you for the
Just very quickly.
Quinton Meadows.
I appreciate those comments, and they haven't gone on deaf ears. But as it stands at the moment, their proposal, and we threw their last proposal out quite strongly. What they've proposed is different this time. Now, you did hear me say that they've said that we are going to do this. They've ignored us. That they have literally said that is it, right? But if okay, well, with deepest respect, unless you're living there with it, the benefit that the Meadows will get from it isn't our direct concern at the moment. They have proposed a different planting scheme, and they've said they are going to start. It's their land and we can't technically stop them. We can make as much fuss as possible. Everything that's being said, everything that they are doing and everything else, which we know is wrong, that is all going to go, and that will all be gone on the next media output, which is coming very soon. I'm getting back in touch with the full media. So we can discuss this offline away from here, because it's not the big issue from a ward point of view. Happy to do that, but from an action group, us pushing it, there is Quinton Meadows has a different requirement and agenda to the residents, and I'm really happy that we can do this offline, away from here, Kate, because I'm very conscious of time.
Yeah, we have only got 10 minutes left, so that's great.
Side of it as well tomorrow.
Lovely. So I've got Barry with his hand up, so I'm going to go to Barry for the last comment on this. Oh, sorry. And then we're going to come... Sorry. Yes. So I'm going to go to Barry to make a comment on this, and then come back to you for your report on Quinton Meadows. And then we're going to very swiftly move on to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And then if we've got any time for any other business, but we have only 9 minutes left. So Barry.
Right. Quinton, I'm shattered. Highfield Farm Recreation Ground. The bid's in to make it a hub for everybody to use. I will be resurrecting football in Quinton for Easter. It will start with a publicity campaign on the Quinton page, which is a kind of quiz about the history of the Little League. That should engender interest. I'm also working with Andy Craddock to try and do an event up there involving the wheelchair basketball as part of his promise to involve Quinton in his bid. Richard Harris, as you know, I walked round with Richard, showed him around the area, and he's hoping to do an event there on July the 16th. So yeah, it's trying to bring people together. I've also, Steve, I didn't recognise you there. I've also spoke to Steve at length, and I'm hoping we may be able to discuss further issues, especially the one he mentioned tonight about access to the allotments. So yeah, a lot of stuff hopefully forthcoming. We've got a domain site registered for free football in Quinton, which is what in line with what most football teams have now, where it's an interactive thing. But this won't take place until around Easter. So I will kick it off in about 2 weeks' time. And then it'll be very intense, very short, very short.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you short because we've got very little time. So Peter and Bina, if you can give us a really quick update on...
Yeah, okay. The emphasis recently has been on creating glades in the woodland area where bluebells are known to grow. This has involved digging up lots of brambles. We've also been reducing the amount of brambles growing near the orchids by the swales or ponds. We're hoping to secure some funding for some benches for Hagley Grange Recreation Ground, which is part of the Meadows, and this funding to come through the Halesowen North and South Community Forum, and hopefully a litter bin. We're about to try and update the Quinton Meadows Consultative Committee constitution in an attempt to get more local people involved. The original constitution of 2000 includes groups which no longer exist. A few more volunteers have come forward to help with nature conservation work, which is very encouraging.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Bina. So I'm going to pass now to Dominic, because I think you asked for us to have the Platinum Jubilee.
Before we do, we've got 60 seconds from Paul on Speedwatch.
Oh, no, excellent. Sorry, completely forgot about you, Paul. My apologies.
No, don't worry. I was going to say I'll do it as quickly as possible. So over the last 11 months, there's been a few of us in this room, really, that have been involved in taking part in the regular Speedwatch with our local PCSOs. So over that period, we've done, I believe, 8 Speedwatches, which has led to approximately 160 letters that have gone out to people that have been caught speeding on that actual Speedwatch. What we're looking to do is actually engage more with the community and actually get more members involved. So if anyone is interested in taking part or wants to know more, then please let the councillors know, and obviously we can liaise and take their contact details and give them a call and see what they want to do, or basically invite them down to the next Speedwatches. And if anyone does have any ideas of where they want to do the next Speedwatches, please again let the councillors know. Thank you.
That's brilliant, and you were super quick. We have got 5 minutes to finish. Dominic.
Very good. Thank you for that. I put this on the agenda. It's a discussion around the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, which is obviously coming up this summer, because the Ward Forum is probably the appropriate place for us to try and discuss and bring ideas to the table as to how, as a community, we would want to celebrate that. And equally, if anyone's aware of current plans that should be kind of brought to the table so that we can support and help facilitate those as they kind of arrive in the summer. I know for previous jubilees and things like that, we've had street closures in various places around the ward, the kind of organisations and groups getting involved, and often being led by 1 or 2 individuals as residents. So I really just wanted to kind of open that up and see if anyone has any ideas on those about anything.
So I think today, well, I talked about the sheltered accommodation, so there might be something we can do with the common rooms of the sheltered accommodation in that, encouraging people to have a celebration on that weekend. Melanie.
I was wondering whether or not, I was wondering whether or not we could do on some open land, like a fair where we have farmers market, we have a craft market. No, but also from a fun point of view, there's something for you to do, something for the kids to look at.
I think the reason Elliot is commenting is they had a plan for this a year ago, and it kind of got COVIDed.
Oh right. Well, I was just wondering because I just thought it might be lovely to have stands, craft, and like a flea market kind of thing, and then always used to have the same down at Halfpenny Green. Or they always used to do the same kind of thing down there.
Absolutely brilliant idea. I don't know whether we've moved away from the COVID thing now, or we could perhaps build it around some of the things we've got the sports day coming up. The lovely guy from Bernardo's. Sorry. We can always try asking West Midlands Transport. We could certainly encourage people to come to Highfield Park Recreation Ground on a particular day with picnics, which might be a simpler thing because everyone's just bringing their own chairs, their own picnic basket and their own. So perhaps just pick one of the days.
Excuse me.
Harry has got his hand up, I've just noticed.
Excuse me, Melanie. Right, sorry. Listen, I'm all for enthusiasm. I've tried to keep it going for the last 8 years, but it's wearing out now. This is very late in the day. You're talking about June the 4th. It's March the, 16th, 17th today? So I'm all in favour if somebody's going to do it. Who's going to do it?
Well, all it takes is someone to put some posters up saying, I'm going for a picnic with my family. Are you going to come and join me?
You are, of course, right. It's late in the day. This will be probably the only ward forum between now and then, depending upon how quickly after the elections the ward forum happens.
We've got 1 minute left.
Well, I think that's helpful. As an initial discussion, I think that's helpful.
Can I just say something? I tend to think small areas or perhaps have their own little picnic kind of thing. I know on our estate there's lots of little pockets that have tabletop things and picnics going on when there's something like that to celebrate. We did the same with the last thing, and I tend to think that's what'll happen.
Yeah, lots of people did that on the anniversary of VE Day. I know certainly on our road when we were still confined to our gardens, we all had a little gathering because it was such gorgeous, gorgeous weather then, wasn't it? So maybe nearer the time we can use the Quinton Facebook pages to suggest to people, for example, if we know the weather's going to be nice, that we do meet and have a picnic and bring, drinks and food nearer the time. So.
Can I just remind you, there's no chairs up at bloody Highfield. and there isn't going to be any till after the Commonwealth Games, by the way.
It is unfortunate that it's going to hit us. We go into Purda next week and then we go into elections, which then makes it quite, I don't know, I don't think it will, but it kind of focuses your elected representatives on certain things, which will all finish on the first Thursday of May, at which point I will retire. So
on that point, obviously I've been the councillor here alongside Kate for only 10 months, I think. But in that time, I've been pleased that despite sitting on opposite sides of the chamber, and I think particularly recently in the last few months, having very heated exchanges between our groups in our council meetings, I'd like to, I think on behalf of Quinton, wish you very well in your retirement, and thank you from my personal perspective for being very kind of open-minded and cross-party in your mentality to tackling some of the issues that we have and some of the projects that we've put forward. So I think we can give Councillor Booth a round of applause.
Thank you very much. It really has been an absolute pleasure and an absolute privilege to represent Quinton for the 6 years.
Handing over to Jim Nichol, who wants to say a quick something.
Councillor Booth, you and I have agreed to disagree on many occasions. I have never doubted your dedication to the people of Quinton. I'd like to personally thank you for the support you've given me in the work I did with the Housing Liaison Board during the pandemic and the lockdown, for your help and advice on the walkabouts we've had, and more importantly, for your supreme support today at the meeting, which I won't go into details about that. But I think that Quinton is losing a very, very good and effective councillor. And I do hope whoever takes your place has got the same dedication and enthusiasm for the people of Quinton as you had. So all the best, and I hope that we will Well, you and I will cross our paths anyway.
You will still see me. I'll still be doing a stint at the food bank, and I'll still be helping out around Quinton. So thank you very much indeed. And thank you. We are 3 minutes over.